Once again, we have Lanre Legacy, a member of the Coalition for Revolution, in the studio. It's a pleasure having you on SaharaTV, Ms. Lanre.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure being here.
We're still looking at Shore's illegal detention by the Nigerian government, and it's been worrisome. And there's just been this back and forth between the DSS, the Nigerian courts, and the Attorney General of the Federation, who are Abubakar Malami, who has asked that the DSS release Shore's files. It's taking over Shore's case, as a matter of fact. One begins to wonder, Malami had asked DSS to hand over the case to him. Why is Shore still in detention at this point in time?
Well, I think what is happening presently now is like making a mockery of the whole situation. From what Gabashew said the last time the DSS was trying to defend itself after that bad image being displayed at the court. I'm talking about December 6th, when the DSS had to invade the court in order to re-arrest him. You can see glaringly that the presidency had a hand in it. And if they should look at it concretely, they are giving a bad image to the entire country. Now the AGF has gone a step further in taking over the case from the DSS. But to my own surprise, one would have expected him to be talking about why he is not releasing Shore. But the only statement he had made is that he's not releasing Shore. One would have expected, in the context of the allegations against him, that he should say he has a case to answer on this, he has a case to answer on that. But it's like taking the whole country for a ride. The international community is looking at us, and it tells a lot about what administration of justice is like if the AGF will be doing such a big mistake. I don't know how long they will continue this drama, but definitely not good enough for the Nigerian image.
Let me get your reaction on this. The Federal High Court in Abuja yesterday actually orders the Director General of the DSS, Yusuf Bichi, as well as the Attorney General himself, Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami, to explain why Shore is still being detained despite the bail being granted. What's your reaction to this court order by the Federal High Court?
I don't think it's the first one. We saw that of December 5th. And what the DSS did was to release him around 7 p.m. in the evening, and the next morning, being sure definitely that he will come to court on 6th of December for the next day hearing, they picked him up in such a gestapo manner. So, to me, clearly speaking, the question we should be asking is this: why are they still keeping him without even preferring any charge against him? I would have expected the court to go a step further. Look, nobody's above the law. If the government of the country cannot keep to its own rules and regulations coming from such an institution, then who else should? So to me, clearly speaking, I think the court should go a step further than just inviting or calling. I think we should really hit the nail on the head. If we have laws in this country, the government must respect it.
Let's look at a recent story in the media that the Buhari regime is investigating Shore over links to Boko Haram and the Shiite movement by the Buhari regime. I mean, first, they said Shore was planning to topple General Buhari's regime. Then they said he was planning a massive civil unrest in the country. And then they said he's destabilizing the economy. Now they've come with this link to Boko Haram, IPOB and Shiite. What's your reaction to this?
Well, to me, I think it's calling the dog a bad name just to have something to nail it. I've been in the court. I've witnessed some of the proceedings. And I know definitely that issues they've raised in the course of even trying to put up issues on, on the trial, they couldn't really pick up any harms, or they've not mentioned any harms being located somewhere. So, going further to find something just to hold him is what they are doing as at now. But we must remember, the same Buhari himself was being named as part of 5 persons that the Boko Haram wanted to stand for it in order to at least deliberate or even, dialogue on their behalf. And nobody held the present president, General Muhammad Buhari, as at that time, for the singular fact that they named him as persons that could dialogue on their behalf. So that means that one way or the other, there's a link between him and the Boko Haram at that time. But that's not the issue. The issue is this: what concrete evidence do they have linking Shore with Boko Haram? Have they stated it? You don't hold a man perpetually and expect that if later on you cannot find anything, you just release him after punishing him unduly. And that's why the court look at it within its wisdom and all the evidence being attached. And look, I'm giving a bail. Obey that law. If in the course of giving that bail, and good enough, the judge did something good enough. If you look at it either way, though some of us don't really like it, because Nigeria is a big country, it's an entity on its own. The man should have right to get to his home. But she has restricted him to Abuja. Exactly. So are we saying that the DSS cannot monitor Ishore within Abuja, pending the time that the trial will be done? But clearly speaking to me, I think it's not the interest of even the DSS or the government of the federation is not to try Ishore. Because in all of this, whether in the court, in the public space, they have not been able to bring up any critical argument to why they want to even try him or why they have any link or whatever evidence they have. They've not been able to substantiate that. All they are doing is to, as much as possible, use legal tactics, disobey court orders, hold on to him as long as possible. And to me, that's nothing but tyranny.
One begins questions the Nigerian government's case to file fresh charges against Shore. But going back to history, General Buhari toppled the democratically elected government of Shagari back in 1983. And this same General Buhari called for a mass action against the government of Obasanjo in 2003. In fact, a massive protest followed in Kano, wherein he participated. General Buhari now is detaining Omoyele Shore for calling for a protest. What is Buhari afraid of?
I'm sure we can keep on counting things that Buhari have said that would continue linking him up with revolution, restoration, fight against the government, talking about insurgency and what have you, linked with insurgency, or even hate speech, whichever one you want to bring up. But the issues are clear. They have not been able to substantiate any of these allegations against Eshowore. I think perhaps he's got anything personal with Showore, which some of us want to know. But if it is with his whole tradition of just trying to hold all dissenting voice, I think he's making a mistake with this. Because we are going to resist it. By the time you look at El Zakizaki's issue, by the time you look at Dazuki's issue, by the time you look at Showore's issue, and several other journalists that have been detained unduly, I think the Nigerian government, the Nigerian people will not fold its hands and continue watch General Buhari to keep on trampling upon people's rights.
A lot of people have actually questioned the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, taking over the case, considering his defiant tone when he was quizzed on why the government of President Buhari chose to detain Omoyele for calling for a revolution. He actually made the statement that we have at hand a situation whereby someone, I'm quoting Abubakar, that contested election and lost and is eventually calling on revolution and change of government through means other than what the Constitution recognizes. And to our government, that is to Buhari's government's mind, that constitutes treasonable felony. So where is all this heading to?
Clearly speaking, I don't think Showore, because I have to clarify that, Showore never called for a change of government, contrary to what people are saying. We're saying we're changing and hold order. All he's asking for is that a system that allows some few people to have the economy thrive for their own interests is not right. These are the core demands, and I think people should keep on looking at that. Now, clearly speaking, contesting an election as a president does not take away your right to agitate if things are wrong. Contesting as a president does not mean that you cannot lead a protest the next day. General Buhari contested election in 2011. He led protests after 2011. For God's sake, I think things should be clear. And it's not, look, it's happening in other countries of the world. The right of a Showore to protest is unlimited. It's not based on the fact that because he had become a presidential candidate, he cannot contest as a Nigerian. He cannot protest as a Nigerian. He can. I want where the law says that if you've contested as a president and you have lost, you cannot protest. I don't think that is right. Now, having said that, I think this government, their hostility on all forms of, dissenting voice is not too good. And the way they're handling it within the ambit of the law is not good enough. For us, you see, one would have expected that immediately the court gave its order that he should be released on bail, that they have no other thing than to obey it. If you have fresh charges, look, you can't move a motion to add, substitute, change those charges you have against him. And that would have been better off if done by the DSS. But to show that even in the first instance, they were not willing to obey the court orders. They kept on giving excuses day in, day out. At first, it was that nobody came for him. At a point in time, they made mockery of even the court order itself by saying that if they release him, perhaps he could be knocked down by a car. You know, for God's sake, in the 21st century where you begin to hear things like that in a democracy, in a government where we expect people to follow the rule of law. And look at the way they went to the court the next day, even when they did after 24 hours order being given by the judge. Sincerely speaking, this government had failed us materially in terms of the economy, in terms of providing employment, in terms of infrastructure. The only thing that is left that would have been happy about is for them to have allowed at least some level of civility to at least take place. Civil rule, for God's sake. Obeying court orders, obeying the rules of the court, allowing at least a peaceful and a kind of atmosphere of decorum to be in place. All this they are doing now is like they are promoting violence.
You were in the trenches during the military years, and it is quite pathetic that the executive arm now can boldly ridicule the order of court to the abashment of Nigeria, of the Nigerian people. And one begins to wonder, is Nigeria subtly venturing into the new military regime? Or are we already within the new military regime?
I was being asked that question some few days back, and I answered this way. Perhaps what we are seeing now is even worse off than what we saw during the Abacha regime. Because the Abacha regime, we all accept the fact that the institutions are not there. Whether you're talking about the legislature or you're talking about the judiciary, they're not there. At least somehow, everybody believes that the total right is with the military regime. The courts, as in the judiciary, they could overcome them through tribunals and what have you. But now we know that the courts statutorily are to be obeyed by the Constitution. We have the legislature there to give orders. We at least oversight function. But right now, what we are having is that we have an executive arm that has made whether the judiciary or the legislature, I don't want to use words that are derogatory, but sincerely speaking, it's more or less like those two arms are no longer in existence. It is not in the interests of just the legislature alone to put the presidency to order. It is in the interest of everybody. One would have expected them to call the DSS to order. Immediately they failed to obey the court orders granting Sowore bail. It took over 2 weeks, in fact, if not more, about 3, for them to come to court from 12th, in fact, from 6th of November to 5th of December before they could obey the order of the court granting him bail. And when they did, after 1 month, that's almost a month, by the next day, which happens to be another court sitting, it was being picked up. When you look at all this, I don't think, despite all that Abacha did, the murderous things he did, some of the actions, haunting opposition and what have you, looking at the scenario and the circumstances around it, I wouldn't have expected so much to be comparing it to the Abacha days happening under a civilian regime.
While the SSS and the Attorney General of the Federation are fishing for terrorism charges to charge Yele Sowore with, it is laughable that the same regime of Major General Buhari, who is the radicalizing and rehabilitating killer Boko Haram and integrating them into the Nigerian army, is still shopping for charges against Sowore. I mean, isn't that ironical?
It's bad enough, because if you pick Boko Haram and you rehabilitate them, let me use their word, and you bring them back into the army, and you see people who are actually calling for a decent environment, and you're looking for charges just to nail them. It tells you which or the path the presidency is towing. The unfortunate thing is this, and I will say this, I hope the president will be able to get this. It's better to live a decent life that generations will admire you when they read and hear about your antecedents. This is doing, I'm sure no younger generation, no future generation will be happy or smile to remember him in history.
That's sad that Buhari will have to end up in infamy. Earlier on, you talk about the situation of our health, education, infrastructural facility, and the security, Nigerian security system sector, which is, so to say, is in shambles. And considering the poverty rate that is on the high in Nigeria, just recently, the president approved 37 billion naira for the renovation of the National Assembly. Not to talk about the fact that the National Assembly will also approve a 30 billion naira loan request by Buhari. I mean, how long will Nigerians contend with the shenanigans?
I think the problem now is when you even put that with the debt profile, then we're in a big problem. And so I was trying to investigate it, and someone told me that that National Assembly itself was being built for just 7 billion naira, being renovated now for 37 billion naira. Except you are telling me, which I don't know how to stand the logic, if you're telling me that the inflation rate in Nigeria between the last 2 decades is as high to the extent that almost times 5, or if not times 6, of what you actually used to build would be going into just rehabilitation or innovation, if that's the actual word they used. I think something is wrong with the corruption campaign. If anything is nailing it, this is one of it.
That's sad. Finally, one big question for your movement has been that the pan-Yoruba agenda cannot forge a defense for Omoyele Sowore, and doesn't that spell doom for the so-called Yoruba race itself if we do not have a pan-Yoruba agenda to fight the struggle?
I'm sorry to disappoint you if I use or if I'm saying this about that. I'm not one of those people that believe it has to be a pan-Yoruba agenda. It has to be a pan-Nigerian agenda. Look, for God's sake, Sowore is not fighting for Yoruba people. He's not fighting for a Yoruba person. He's fighting for Nigeria. Nothing stops anybody from the north to be campaigning that the law must be adhered to. The president and institutions under him must respect the rule of law and should ensure that Omoyele Sowore is being released. Look, if Sowore were to be an Igbo man or an Hausa man, I will be sitting where I am and I will be fighting for him. Look, whatever it takes to make an average Hausa man in the north, whether in Daura, whether in Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, wherever, as long as the interest of an average Nigerian, the poor, is being protected, we should all stand up for it and ask for a better governance. And that's what we're talking about.
Thank you very much, Larry.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.